fourth edition of Across the Goal Line. I'm Corey Maines. With me, as always, is Luke Goddessart. Luke, how are you today?
Pretty good, Corey. Today we're going to be talking about Kobe Bryant, one of the greats. We're going to preview our mock drafts, which I'm really excited to talk about. What else?
We're also going to talk about Jackie Robinson. He had his little holiday here this past Friday. We couldn't talk about it then because we record on Thursdays, of course. So we're going to talk about it today. And you said it, we're going to talk about Kobe Bryant here to start off the show. He finished his NBA career last Wednesday in a home game against the Utah Jazz in which he scored 60 points. That's right, he scored 60 points in his final NBA game, which is the most by any player in their final regular season game.
He's also the oldest to score 60 points in a game at the age of 37 or 30. Is he 38?
He's somewhere in that
He's
range.
either 37 or 38.
He's up there.
That's the reason why he decided to retire, too.
That was his sixth 60-point game of his career that night. He also shot his career high in field goal attempts with 50, and he made 22 of them. He finished out his career, like we said, and he had a fantastic career, probably one of the best. He was going to go down as one of the best in the game of all time. He was always considered, I think, kind of the next Michael, almost, for his generation at least. And he finished his career with 33,643 points, which is third most all time, behind Jordan and Kareem. He totaled 1,346 games over his 20-season career, which is a Laker record, his point total as well as a Laker record, along with another Laker record of 1,944 steals. His 20 seasons, all with the Lakers, is an NBA record. His being in 20 seasons with just one team is an NBA record. Also one of the highest of any sport as well. I think fourth or fifth highest all time. He has 5 NBA championships, including 3 straight from 2000 to 2002 when he was pairing up with Shaquille O'Neal. The other 2 came in, I think, back-to-back years, maybe 2009 and 2010 or something.
Yeah, it was 2009, 2010. And Kobe Bryant, as you said, Corey, played all 20 seasons with the Los Angeles Lakers, but he was not drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers. He was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets back in 1996 as the number 13 pick, as I should say, excuse me. And then his rights were traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for a player that I don't really remember because that player didn't turn out to be as good as Kobe Bryant, so we're not even going to get into talking about that.
Yeah, he was drafted about 18 years old, straight out of high school, Lower Merion, around Philadelphia there. He's an 18-time All-Star, and he won 2 NBA final MVPs in those 09 and 2010 finals. You know, some stats here. We did those stats, and we're going to get some key games from his career. Of course, he has the second highest total in a single game with 81, a game against the Toronto Raptors on January 22nd of 2006.
Also on that day was the conference championship games for the NFL. You had the Pittsburgh Steelers go up against the Denver Broncos, and then you had the Seattle Seahawks go up against the Carolina Panthers. The Steelers and Seahawks both won and faced each other in the Super Bowl 2 weeks later as the Steelers defeated the Seahawks in Super Bowl 40. 81 points is the second most behind Wilt Chamberlain's 100 points back in...
somewhere in the 60s, I think.
Yeah, back in the 1960s. Not sure on the exact year. But Kobe's just one of the all-time greats. Go on with more of some of his key games.
His key games, of course, he's most known for his scoring, of course. 61 at Madison Square Garden against the New York Knicks on February 2nd, 2009 is the most by a visiting player at Madison Square Garden. He also totaled a pretty ridiculous streak back in 2007. He had 4 straight games of 50 or more points. And this is all within a week span. He scored 65, 50, 60, and then another game of 50 over that week's span.
Which is just ridiculous. I don't think that's ever going to be done again. If it does, the only player I can think of at the moment that is currently playing is LeBron James, but he really hasn't scored a whole lot consecutively in a row recently. So that's the only player I can think of that would be able to break that. But who knows? Maybe somebody that's in high school right now and will be drafted at 18 years old, or be 19 years old, because you do have to go to college for a year unless you go play overseas. Throw that out there. They changed that rule a couple years ago for all you NBA fans out there, all basketball fans out there. But yeah, Kobe, I really don't know what else to say about him, just because he's shattering records, as you're saying.
Yeah, we finish out. I'll finish out his kind of his stat line here. He, despite all of his greatness scoring the ball and all these great records that he's broken, he has just won a single MVP award, and that was in 2007, 2008. So, Luke, I want to ask you here, where do you think Kobe ranks in terms of all-time players and Lakers, for that matter?
All-time Lakers, there's question on if he is the greatest Laker behind Magic. I personally didn't see Magic play. Neither of us did. So I would have to say Kobe is number one. But then you also have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Shaq, too.
And you got Shaq. Shaq didn't play most of his career with the Lakers, though. He got drafted by the Magic. Then he played for the Lakers. And then he played for the Heat. And then he played
for almost everyone.
He played for a lot of teams late in his career. I remember he played for the Cavaliers with LeBron. He played for the Boston Celtics. Played for the Phoenix Suns after the Miami Heat. I totally forgot about the Suns. And I think that's all the teams he played for. So I don't see Shaq on a great Laker list unless
he did bring 3 titles.
He did, but he had Kobe there as well, and that's who we're talking about. So
I like Kobe as being definitely 1 or 2. It's hard to say, like you said. Haven't seen Magic ever play a basketball game. I've seen Kobe many times, so it's really hard because I know what Kobe can do. I know Magic is great and all, but I'm just gonna put Kobe just based on witnessing his greatness. You could say.
No doubt, though, the top 3 Lakers of all time, you can put them in whatever order you want. You got Kobe Bryant, you got Magic Johnson, you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar going back in time. And then to answer your question as well about great basketball players of all time, Kobe's definitely on that list. I'd say Michael is number 1, and then Kobe's in the top 5 because you got Larry Bird. You got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You got Magic Johnson also on that list. John Stockton. There's a lot of guys that can be named that I'm not going to name right now. But Kobe Bryant's definitely one of the great basketball players of all time.
Definitely. I would say top 5. If not, definitely top 10. There's no doubt about it. Of course, Michael is number 1. I don't think anyone's going to take that over unless it's LeBron. But I don't see LeBron doing that either, though.
People, as you said earlier, people thought Kobe was the next Michael.
Yeah.
Now, with Kobe retiring, people are going to be saying, people have been saying ever since LeBron entered the league that LeBron's the next Michael. But now with Kobe retiring, they're going to be saying he's either the next Kobe or is the next Michael. And they're going to be talking about that until LeBron retires, and who knows when that's going to be. Because he's only about 30 years old, so he could have another, 7-8 years in him, just like Kobe. But we'll just have to find out and see.
All right, we'll wrap up Kobe right there. We're going to move we're going to talk about a player that totally, you could say, revolutionized a sport. This is Jackie Robinson, of course, the first African-American Major League Baseball players it was after segregation happened, of course. And he played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. He got his start around 1947, I think. 1947-6, I think.
It was April 15th, 1947, I believe. I shouldn't say in infamy. to quote one of our former presidents. But as you said, he revolutionized the game. He allowed African American players and players of other races to be able to play the game of baseball. And as we can see, we can obviously see that now with today's baseball. You got players from all types of different countries from around the world. I'm not going to get into that because the list is just so long. But yeah, Jackie Robinson, great player.
You said April 15th. That is why we are talking about Jackie Robinson. The 15th was just last Friday, but we couldn't talk about it because we record on Thursdays, as I said earlier in the podcast. So we're talking about it now. April 15th was actually, they had his number 42, retired across all of baseball on April 15th, 1997. Bill Clinton came out and addressed the crowd at Shea Stadium, which was still up at the time, the Mets' home field.
Now Citi Field.
Yes. And Jackie Robinson, he had a pretty good career to go along with his groundbreaking achievement of breaking into baseball as an African American. He was the National League Rookie of the Year in his 1947 when he had 12 home runs. He had 29 steals, which led the league, and he batted .297. 2 years later, he was the National League MVP in 1949 with an average of .342, which was the batting title as well. And he was inducted into Cooperstown in the Hall of Fame in 1962. So Luke, you kind of touched on this already, but I want to get your take on, maybe you can expand on it, his legacy on the game of baseball.
He totally changed it. As I just said, he has allowed for other nationalities to play the game of baseball. And as you said, they retired his number 42 back in 1997, and number 42 is not worn except for on Jackie Robinson Day, April 15th of every season.
Now, because Mariano Rivera was wearing it before he retired. He was the last person to wear number 42 in baseball.
That is true.
When he retired, what was it, a year or two ago?
It was a couple years ago, yeah. But as I was saying, everybody wears number 42 now on Jackie Robinson Day, and as I said, he changed the game of baseball. There's not really much else to say about it.
Yeah, wearing that number 42 on his day, you could say, really paying respect and homage to a guy who did transcend the game kind of with, I mean, gotta give credit to the guy who took a chance on him for the Brooklyn Dodgers back in 1947, whatever year it was, for just bringing in Jackie and giving him an opportunity to break down that color barrier and to just, change the game the way that, how would you say, like, people integrated into it, like African Americans started getting more into it. Because, of course, back then they had the Negro Leagues, which was just single-handedly black people.
Which he was a part of, and then he decided he wanted to play real professional baseball. And Branch Rickey, the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers at the time, took a chance on him, and the rest is pretty much history. Because as we said, he really changed the game of baseball. Across the Goal Line is brought to you by Silence Our Perdition, a metal band from Clearfield, Pennsylvania. They just started playing a couple years ago, but they're on the rise in the music industry, so be sure to check them out. Some songs include Slaves to Obedience, Never, Six, Left and Solace, and An Untold Story. You can check out Silence Our Perdition on Facebook, and be sure to click that like button. You can also follow them on Twitter at SOPerdition. You can contact them on either Facebook or Twitter. Across the Goal Line is brought to you by Pastime Collectibles, a collectible store in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. Pastime Collectibles sells hobby boxes, vintage cards, Nintendo games and systems, coins, jerseys, memorabilia, and more. They host Magic the Gathering tournaments every Wednesday and Friday nights, and also show all WWE pay-per-views live. You can check out Pastime Collectibles on Facebook, and be sure to click that like button. You can also follow them on Twitter at Pastime Collect. You can contact them by calling 814-762-1410, or you can email them at pastime.collectibles@gmail.com. Moving forward, we have the NFL Draft coming up next week. It's going to be taking place in Chicago, Illinois, at the Auditorium Theater for the second straight year after being held in New York City for 50 years. As I said, it's next week, the 28th to the 30th. I remember the draft being held on a Saturday and a Sunday. It'd start at noon on a Saturday. It'd be the first 3 rounds, but the first round would take about 8 hours because the picks were for 15 minutes apiece. And then you had the second and third round after that with 10 minutes apiece and 5 minutes apiece. Now the first round is 10 minutes apiece, 5 minutes, and then 3 minutes, I believe. Corey, what do you remember the draft being like?
I don't really remember the draft too much. I actually have a problem remembering stuff, honestly. You
have Alzheimer's or
here.
what?
Confessional here. You have a hard time remembering stuff, okay?
Don't we all? But anyways, there's going to be 25 draft attendees next week. Some of them include Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, the top 2 quarterbacks in most people's opinion, Jack Conklin, Robert Nkemdiche, Jalen Ramsey, who thinks he's the best player available, and he has his own right to say that. So kudos to him. Now we're gonna be giving you both our mock drafts. Say I'm Mel Kiper, Corey's Todd McShay. Let's get into it. Who do you got going number 1 overall to the LA Rams?
Yeah, of course, the LA Rams getting that number 1 pick from the Tennessee Titans, trading for it last week. I have them taking a quarterback. I'm going Jared Goff out of Cal.
I also have Jared Goff, quarterback out of California. As you said, the LA Rams now own the number 1 pick in this year's draft. They gave up their first-round pick, the number 15th pick, number 43, 45, number 76, a first-round pick next year, and also a third-round pick next year for that number 1 selection in this year's draft. I originally had Laramie Tunsil going to the Tennessee Titans at number 1, but since the trade went down, as I said, I have them taking, if I can talk, Jared Goff from California. I don't think they really need a quarterback. They do have Nick Foles. They just re-signed Case Keenum, and they drafted Sean Mannion last year out of Oregon State. They need to build around those quarterbacks, I believe, and running back Todd Gurley, but they're still going to end up taking the quarterback they wanted to draft. They wanted to trade it up to the number 1 overall pick, if not. Moving on, Cleveland Browns originally had the number 2 pick up until yesterday. They traded with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles now own the number 2 pick. They gave up their first-round pick this year, which is number 8, which they got in a trade with the Miami Dolphins, which we'll get into here in a little bit. Pick number 77, number 100, a first-round pick in next year's draft, and also a second-round pick in 2018 for this second overall pick. I originally had, this might surprise some people, I originally had Laquan Treadwell, wide receiver from Ole Miss. Recruited really high out of high school. Was having a fantastic season 2 years ago, I believe. And he broke his ankle. And halfway through the year, had to sit out the rest of the year. And then he really wasn't much the same. Didn't run at the combine. But I thought the Browns would have took him because they didn't need a quarterback either. They just signed RG3 in free agency. They have Josh McCown. They just released Johnny Manziel. And then they need a number 1 receiver was the main reason why. Because Josh Gordon, who is still part of the team, is still suspended. And then they lost Travis Benjamin to San Diego in free agency. But then I wouldn't be surprised if they did take an offensive lineman either, because Joe Thomas is getting older, and then they lost Alex Mack in free agency. And Hugh Jackson is an offensive-minded coach, but as I said, they traded that pick. The Philadelphia Eagles now own it. And this was the fourth time in common draft era in which the first two picks were dealt before the draft. And that is our stat of the week this week. So as I said, the Eagles now own the number 2 pick. All you Philadelphia Eagles fans out there, I have Carson Wentz, the quarterback from North Dakota State, going to the Eagles. Who do you have, Corey?
I too have Carson Wentz out of North Dakota State. I think that they say they're pretty confident with Sam Bradford, but I think there's a reason they traded up, and I think it might just be to get one of these top 2 quarterbacks, especially after seeing the Rams trade up. They're in their mind thinking they're picking Goff or Wentz to begin with. So they're like, we'll just take Goff or Wentz, and whoever's available at the time, they're going to take. I have Goff already off, so Wentz it is.
Yeah. Doug Peterson, former offense coordinator for the Chiefs. He had Alex Smith as his quarterback. Carson Wentz, obviously better than Alex Smith. Wentz is a lot younger right now, just coming out of college. Smith was also a number 1 pick, though, out of Utah. He had Urban Meyer as his head coach at Utah, and he was drafted by the San Francisco 49ers. We saw how that all went down. Jim Harbaugh was out there. Colin Kaepernick succeeded over him. Alex Smith got traded to the Kansas City Chiefs, as did Joe Montana how many years ago, after playing for the 49ers for so long and winning 5 Super Bowls with them. But I think Wentz fits perfect with Philly. But I've heard that they like both quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Carson Wentz, and would take whoever the LA Rams did not take with the number 1 overall pick. Moving on, San Diego Chargers, they finished at 4-12 last year. Lost Eric Weddle to the Baltimore Ravens in free agency, so they need a safety. I have him taking Jalen Ramsey, the safety out of Florida State, who thinks he is the best player in this year's draft. He's one of the fastest corners, safeties in recent history. He reminds a lot of people of Deion Sanders.
Again, we agree. I'm taking Jalen Ramsey with the 3rd pick for the Chargers, the defensive back out of Florida State, mainly because of Eric Weddle's departure. I think they need to fill that void that he left by leaving. And I think Jalen Ramsey, of course, he thinks he's the best. Who knows? Maybe he will be.
Yeah, maybe he is the best in the world. Who knows? But this better not be like this the whole mock draft. I mean, three picks in a row.
I can guarantee you it will not.
All right. Moving on, Dallas Cowboys. They also finished at 4-12 last year. Main reason is because Tony Romo got hurt again. Seems like every couple years he gets hurt. But anyways, I originally had Wentz going to Dallas at 4. But with the trades, I have Wentz going to Philly now, as I said. I have the Cowboys taking DeForest Buckner, the defensive end from Oregon. His hands are bigger than a football. It's ridiculous. You need to check out the sports science that ESPN did with him this past week. The guy will blow your mind.
All right, we finally disagree. I have him taking Joey Bosa, the defensive end out of Ohio State. I mean, there's the Cowboys can do anything. They are probably the weirdest team to try to predict what they're going to do, because you do not know what the Cowboys are going to do. A lot of times you think Jerry Jones is in for publicity, and maybe he just picks something off. I don't even know I'm trying to think of the word here. Off the trail or something like that. I don't know what I'm trying to think of. Just totally out there. He might pick like
you did say you forget a lot of things. So.
I do. They could pick like Ezekiel Elliott or something. I don't even know. They can pick anybody, but I'm going Joey Bosa. I think he's been long projected at this spot the whole time. It's going to stick with him at the 4 spot. I think they pick up a good pass rusher that'll help out their line. We
did agree on them taking a defensive end, though. Buckner and Bosa are both defensive ends from Oregon and Ohio State, respectively. But defensive end is a position that they do need, so that's why I think we both agree on defensive end, because they didn't re-sign. Who didn't they re-sign?
Was it Hardy?
Yeah, Greg Hardy got in a lot of trouble for assaulting his girlfriend. Says he didn't hit her. Who knows if he did or not? We're not going to get into that. He's currently a free agent still. And then Greg Hardy, who they drafted last year out of Nebraska.
Well, not Greg Hardy.
Yeah. Randy Gregory. Greg and Gregory. That's the reason why I said Hardy's name again. That's my fault. I'm sorry. Randy Gregory, I'll say it again, Randy Gregory is suspended for PED use. And then they also have another defensive lineman who is also going to be suspended here soon. So Jack Crawford, former Penn State Nittany Lion, is the only defensive lineman on the roster right now that is eligible to start in week 1. Jacksonville Jaguars pick at number 5. They also need a D-end. I don't see them taking a defensive end, though. I think we agree on this pick as well. I was looking at your mock draft earlier. I have him taking Miles Jack, the linebacker out of UCLA. He's injured right now. He did not participate at anything in the combine. Didn't participate in his pro day at UCLA either. But I believe he has a bright future ahead of him if he can, stay healthy.
I too go Miles Jack out of UCLA, saying he didn't partake in any of the combine or anything to help rise his draft stock. He might fall, you never know. But I think he's a safe pick for the Jaguars at 5. You're talking about them getting a pass rusher. He can do that for them probably off the edge, be like a hybrid type guy, end/linebacker, kind of like a Clay Matthews type maybe.
Who you look like. You have long blonde hair. Grow your beard out sometimes like him. And then Gus Bradley is also a defensive-minded coach. He was the defensive coordinator up with the Seattle Seahawks before he left for the Jacksonville Jaguars a number of years ago. And then Dan Quinn succeeded him, and Dan Quinn is now the head coach with the Atlanta Falcons, who pick at number 18, and we'll get into that here in a short while. Moving on, the Baltimore Ravens pick at number 6. They finished at 5-11. New head coach. No, that's the San Francisco 49ers, looking at my notes here. The Baltimore Ravens still have the same head coach in John Harbaugh, brother of Jim, who was the head coach of the 49ers, now the head coach at Michigan. I have the Baltimore Ravens taking Darren Lee, the linebacker out of Ohio State, but I said if Jacksonville does not take Miles Jack, Baltimore does. They need a young linebacker besides Terrell Suggs and C.J. Mosley. But if Jack is gone, Baltimore still gets the linebacker and Darren Lee out of Ohio State.
I have them taking DeForest Buckner out of Oregon, the defensive end that you had the Cowboys taking at 4. No reason, really. I just have them taking him.
All right. As I said, as I messed up, the San Francisco 49ers have a head coach in Chip Kelly, former Oregon coach, where DeForest Buckner played at. Had Chip Kelly as his head coach his freshman year. And then he was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. We all know what happened with that. He's now the head coach of the 49ers. I haven't taken Laramie Tunsil. They could go anywhere with this, though. And just a reminder, this is going to be out 1 week, actually 6 days before the draft, the first round starts. So they could still take a quarterback if they deal Colin Kaepernick to another team. But I have him taking Tunsil out of Ole Miss.
Yeah, you talk about quarterbacks. A lot of people have been saying that they're going to take a quarterback with their first-round pick here. I haven't taken a quarterback, and since Goff and Wentz would be unavailable at this point, according to my mock draft at least, I'm going Paxton Lynch, the next best available, out of Memphis, the QB. They do need a quarterback to help with Blaine Gabbert, Colin Kaepernick, whatever, who it's going to be, because I don't even know their situation right now, who was the starter right now week 1 as it stands. So Lynch comes in. The only problem I have with that pick is I don't know if he really fits into that Chip Kelly system, the high-pace offense, his big frame and stuff. I think he'll get tired out there, honestly.
Yeah, talk about that big frame. He's about 6'7", 6'8". He's about Brock Osweiler's size, who just signed with the Houston Texans in free agency for a lot of money. I agree with you. I don't think he fits with that system, but if they do deal Kaepernick or whatever they decide to do, it's going to be very interesting to for this upcoming season. Moving on, pick number 8. The Philadelphia Eagles, Chip Kelly's former team, had this pick at 8 until they traded it yesterday to the Cleveland Browns. But before that, the Philadelphia Eagles got this number 8 pick from the Miami Dolphins. Philadelphia traded Kiko Alonso and Byron Maxwell, 2 players that Chip Kelly got last year, for Miami's number 8 pick. But as I said, Philadelphia traded the number 8 pick to Cleveland for the number 2 pick. So Cleveland now owns the number 8 pick. Cleveland finished at 3-13. Cleveland fans, I'm sorry for what I said last week. I called you guys a dump. You guys are, though, in my opinion, so no, I'm not really sorry. I haven't taken Ronnie Stanley, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. They can go anywhere, but I see them taking a tackle because, as I said earlier, Thomas is getting older. Mack, they lost in free agency. And Hugh Jackson, new head coach, is an offensive-minded coach, comes in from Cincinnati. So I haven't taken Stanley. But if Tunsil's still there, if debating on what San Francisco does, Tunsil could be there at 8. So I still think they'll take offensive guy.
I too think they'll take an offensive guy, but I am going out of the ballpark here, and I'm taking Ezekiel Elliott, the running back. Ezekiel Elliott, the running back out of Ohio State University. This is an interesting pick. The Browns are kind of dumb, honestly, and I think they might do something like this. They pick Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, it would help their football team. It would probably help RG3, the quarterback that they're probably confident with now after trading the second pick. It'll help him out, not having to throw as much and relying on him because they don't got really a running back right now that's really reliable. Isaiah Crowell and Duke Johnson.
Yeah, they have those 2 guys, but Zeke would easily start over both of them, even though Crowell and Johnson are both still young. It would help out with marketing too, and we're going to get into marketing here with our next pick. Ohio State is in Columbus, Ohio. The Cleveland Browns are all obviously in Cleveland, Ohio. Not that far of a distance in between. I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns did do that.
But like you said about Laremy Tunsil, they might take him because according to my mock draft, I have him still on the board at this point. They might go his way. They might pick an offensive tackle, like you said, help out protecting RG3 instead, rather than having a guy that can take pressure off of him.
So. It all starts up front with the offense and defensive lines. You got to build your offense and defense, respectively, around that, in my opinion. As I said about marketing, I have Vernon Hargreaves III, a cornerback from Florida, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They drafted Jameis Winston, obviously, with the number 1 overall pick, who won Rookie of the Year last year from Florida State. And this year, I think they're going to take Hargreaves from Florida. It's going to help out with marketing real good. That was just my water bottle falling, if it caught there on audio. But I have Hargreaves.
I have Laremy Tunsil, who I just talked about in the last pick. I have him still on the board, the offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. I think, much like I just said about RG3 trying to protect Jameis Winston, getting what is arguably the top prospect in this draft, Laremy Tunsil. I mean, he was originally slated to be the number 1 pick to the Titans, so he is definitely a top caliber talent. And if he's there at 9, I think the Bucs just scoop him up in a steal almost.
And then you got the New York Giants. The New York Football Giants, as Chris Berman would say, who finished at 6-10. I have him taking Eli Apple from The Ohio State University. Ohio State has 5 players, the most in draft history, or tied for most in draft history, I believe, attending the draft. So 5 of those 25 players attending the draft are from Ohio State. Urban Meyer's done a fantastic job since he has come to Columbus. But I have the Giants taking Apple. They won Super Bowl 42 and 46 because of their defense. I think they add to it with Apple. And Apple is also from New Jersey. So marketing, again, any way they can bring in money, bring those family members friends, cousins, whatever it may be. Apple's a good fit. They also need a safety. He can play both corner and safety if need be.
I'm going offensive tackle again. I'm going Jack Conklin, the offensive tackle out of Michigan State.
All right, I have Conklin here coming up. Chicago Bears. The Bears. I have them taking Shaq Lawson, the defensive end from Clemson. They need a outside linebacker, defensive end, or defensive tackle. Anything on defensive line, linebacker. He can play both D end and outside linebacker. Two positions that the Bears need. So, reason why I've Lawson going to Chicago.
You talk about the needs. I'm going right there to the needs. I'm taking Darren Lee, the outside linebacker out of Ohio State, who you had, a couple picks ago?
Yeah, at number 6 going to Baltimore.
Yeah, he's very versatile. I think that he helps out that pass rush in Chicago.
John Fox, the head coach, in his second year after being fired from Denver, is also a defensive-minded coach. And they need a lot on that side of the ball, so Chicago is definitely going to go defense either way. Number 12, we got your New Orleans Saints, Corey, who finished at 7-9. I have them taking Reggie Ragland, the linebacker from the Alabama Crimson Tide. Who do you have them taking?
I have them taking Sheldon Rankins, the defensive tackle out of Louisville. I think that we need a guy on the line that can help stuff the run, also get good pass rush. Rankins can do both of those. He's very quick. He can really rush the passer really well.
Get caught up
which
in
will
your
really
words
help.
there.
Yes, which will really help the Saints, and they really need a defensive player no matter what. So any top defensive guy in this pick would do wonders for him because that defense is awful.
Also, if they add somebody on defense, which they probably will, coming from you're a Saints fan. Ragland is a linebacker, obviously, as I said. He would learn from the newly added linebacker, James Laurinaitis. Now, I don't know if I told the story about Laurinaitis. His family, his father is Road Warrior Animal, and his uncle is John Laurinaitis, known for people power. And was also, John is also married to Brie and Nikki Bella's mom, who just this past Monday, this past Tuesday, Total Divas had the season finale for all you wrestling buffs out there. Next year, this upcoming fall, there's going to be a new show. It's called Total Bellas, and it's going to have the Bellas, Daniel Bryan, John Cena, John Laurinaitis. Who knows if James Laurinaitis is going to be on there, if they're hanging out with the Bellas or whatnot. We'll just have to find out and see about that. But I thought that was a cool story I'd share with you guys. Now, for the number 13 pick. The Miami Dolphins have this pick now from the Philadelphia Eagles, who, as I said, they traded for Kiko Alonso and Byron Maxwell. And Philly got the 8th pick. Philly obviously moved up to the number 2 pick. Last time they picked in the top 2 spots, they drafted Donovan McNabb out of Syracuse in 1999. But this is where things get interesting. I have a trade in my mock draft. A trade that hasn't happened yet. A trade that I think will probably happen because it involves running backs. I have Ezekiel Elliott getting drafted by the Miami Dolphins. Okay. But then at pick number 14, you have the Oakland Raiders, who also, I shouldn't say they also need a running back. They have Latavius Murray. But I think these picks are made and the trade is made after the picks are made. I have Bosa getting Joey Bosa, defensive end who you had going to the Dallas Cowboys, getting drafted by Oakland at 14. But then I have Joey Bosa and Latavius Murray going to the Miami Dolphins in exchange for Ezekiel Elliott. So there's some things up there. Elliott gets drafted by the Dolphins. Bosa gets drafted by the Raiders. 2 Ohio State guys, by the way. Elliott goes to Oakland. Bosa goes to Miami, where his dad played for a couple years. His dad was also a first-round pick out of Boston College back in 1987. Also a defensive end. and Miami needs players on that side, on that defensive side. So they'll be getting a good defensive player, and they're also going to be getting a well-touted, experienced running back in Murray.
You talk about the Raiders maybe trying to get a running back like Elliott. I think they could do that maybe later in the draft, maybe a Derrick Henry, possibly. He'd probably fit in really well right there, maybe even take over the starting spot from Latavius Murray.
Derrick Henry reminds me a lot of Eddie George, another former Ohio State standout who won the Heisman Trophy and played for the Houston Oilers and the Tennessee Titans.
Going back, I got to do 13. The Dolphins. If Ezekiel Elliott is there and the Browns don't take him like I have him doing, then they take him, I do believe, and just keep him. But for this mock draft, I have them taking Leonard Floyd, outside linebacker out of Georgia. And then the Raiders, since you already went over the Raiders, I'll do their pick now. Vernon Hargreaves III, the cornerback out of Florida.
By the way, Miami lost Lamar Miller to free agency, so they do need a running back. So we'll just have to see what the Dolphins do. They always love to spend money. Signed Ndamukong Suh to a ridiculous deal last year that has since been, what's the word? I'm having trouble now, Corey. We're talking too much. It has been.
Was it reduced or something?
Reduced is a good word. It was restructured. Restructured. Pick number 15 was originally the LA Rams. Now the Tennessee Titans. Titans traded back. LA Rams have the number 1 pick now. This might be the surprise in the first round. I have the Tennessee Titans taking Mackenzie Alexander, the cornerback out of Clemson. He has a lot of potential. He's a great player in college at Clemson, but he just has to stay healthy. He's had injury problems his whole career. So I think if he can stay healthy, he'll be a good corner in the league. And also with the number 15 pick, a few years ago, the Seattle Seahawks had the number 15 pick, and they took Bobby Wagner, who is a fantastic linebacker now for their defense, who nobody had in the first round in any mock drafts. So, a little history about that 15 pick. There might be a surprise. Tune into the draft next week.
All right, 15, the Titans. I have them taking Ronnie Stanley, the lineman out of Notre Dame, pretty much for the same reason why you had them taking Tunsil originally at number 1 to help protect Marcus Mariota. And to, just protect Marcus Mariota, I guess.
Yeah, they just traded for DeMarco Murray as well.
Yes.
And Stanley can play any position on that offensive line. He's a tackle. They do have Taylor Lewan, the former tackle out of Michigan. He's a right tackle right now. Move him to left tackle, keeping it right tackle, whatever, because Stanley can play any position on the line. Mariota, as you said, needs protection, and Murray, former Dallas Cowboy, set numerous records, rushing records, and then decided to sign with the Eagles and Chip Kelly. But as I said, Chip Kelly is no longer there, and neither is Murray. So Eagles are starting all over again. Moving on, Detroit Lions. I have Jack Conklin from Michigan State. I don't think he goes far. I think he stays in state. Michigan State's in East Lansing, Michigan. Detroit's obviously in Detroit, Michigan. They need an offensive tackle to protect Matthew Stafford, another good quarterback in this league. So they either take... they also have a lot of needs on the defensive side of the ball. The Lions do. But I think they go offense, protect Stafford. I think they take a wide receiver, maybe in the second or third rounds, with the loss of Calvin Johnson due to retirement. So they could take a lineman for the second straight year or a defensive player. It could go either way. Find out and see.
I'm actually going wide out, as you were just saying, to replace Calvin Johnson. I'm going Josh Doxson, the wide receiver out of TCU. I think that he actually has the potential to replace a Calvin Johnson with his size at 6'2". He's very quick. He's very quick for his size, of course. quick. I don't say fast, but quick. He is kind of fast, but his 40 time's a little low. But his quickness is what really sets him apart. He's able to accelerate at a very high rate. You mentioned the sports science. I watched some of that. He was one of the guys I saw. He was second highest at getting up to top speed out of all the guys that are in the draft, and the only guy better than him was Jalen Ramsey, who thinks he is the best. So,
and he's a cornerback, so two different positions. And then a lot of people are saying Doxson is the best wide receiver in this year's draft class. You also got Corey Coleman. You also got Will Fuller. You also got Laquan Treadwell. But, Falcons, I mentioned Dan Quinn earlier. They finished at 8-8 in his first season. I haven't taken Leonard Floyd, the linebacker out of Georgia. I also think he stays in state. They need a linebacker. They also need a defensive lineman. He's 6'6", 250 right now. And for a linebacker, that's just ridiculous. Normally a linebacker is a max at 6'4". But 6'6", he can play that hybrid position, as you said, with, what was the player you mentioned?
I think it was Jack. I think it was
Miles Jack. Miles Jack. Another great player, by the way. But anyways, Dan Quinn came from Seattle, defensive-minded coach. I say they take Floyd and keep him close by in Atlanta.
I haven't taken Reggie Ragland, the inside linebacker out of Alabama. He's defensive-minded coach. You're talking about defensive-minded coaches. Dan Quinn, of course, former defensive coordinator for the Seahawks, correct? I do believe.
Yeah.
He's, of course, defensive-minded, of course. I think they boost that defense. I think they have a lot of good pieces on offense already. They need someone on the defensive end to really help themselves.
Yeah, I'm surprised the Falcons haven't made a push for the playoffs. Well, I should say in the playoffs. They did reach it a couple years ago, and they reached the NFC Championship game just to lose to the San Francisco 49ers, who lost to the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl 2 weeks later. But yeah, two SEC guys, and Floyd and Ragland. Atlanta's in Georgia and SEC country. Moving up north a little bit into the Midwest, you got the Indianapolis Colts, who finished at 8-8, mostly because Andrew Luck was hurt, Charlie Whitehurst, Matt Hasselbeck, who has since retired, played in his spot. I see them taking a center, which they truly need, from Ryan Kelly from Alabama as well.
The Colts, Taylor Decker out of Ohio State, a tackle out of Ohio State, lineman, whatever. Any lineman for the Colts is good at this point because, I mean, their line's pretty bad. Andrew Luck got sacked so many times last year, so many turnovers, and he really needs protection more than anyone. He is the franchise guy, no doubt about it.
Yeah. As you said, Luck's the franchise guy. So Buffalo needs their franchise guy. They pick next at 19. I see him taking Paxton Lynch, a quarterback from Memphis. He wears number 12. Jim Kelly, former Buffalo Bill quarterback, also wore number 12. So I think they get their new face franchise. And then moving on, you got the Jets picking at 20.
Hey, I didn't get to do my... Okay. Go ahead.
You'll get to do your pick here, Corey. Don't worry. Rex Ryan, former coach of the Jets, now coaches with the Bills. I think he screws over the Jets and takes Lynch, who the Jets really, really like. So, without further ado, Corey Maines with his Buffalo Bills selection.
All right, I have him taking Shaq Lawson, the defensive end out of Clemson. I think they actually both Ryan boys are up there now, I do believe.
Yeah, Rob is a defensive assistant. I don't think he's a defensive coordinator. He's a defensive assistant, but he was a former defense coordinator for the New Orleans Saints.
That did not end well.
Dallas Cowboys as well. just to name a few spots he's been. But
Shaq Lawson, I haven't taken that. They're very defensive minded, both of them. But Rex more, I mean, he's the actual coach, so I think he would see a guy like Shaq Lawson on the board and think, I'll take this guy. He'll be able to help our pass rush with Mario Williams and Darius, I think.
Marcel Darius, whatever you want to say, however you want to say
I
his
think
last
he
name.
boosts that defensive line and makes them a dominant defense that they were supposed to be last year, which I don't remember exactly if they were that good last year. I don't quite remember.
Going back to Williams, though, I don't think he's with Buffalo anymore. I think he went down to Miami.
Did he?
I believe so. So
Too bad.
Lawson would be a great selection there, though, just because.
If that is the case, then that makes my case even better for Shaq
Yeah.
Lawson to replace him. But honestly, Shaq Lawson can go all the way up to maybe even 4, even to the Cowboys. He can go anywhere on this board where a defensive end is needed because he is a fantastic player. Played for the
Clemson Tigers.
I guess you would call him the runner-up Clemson Tigers this past season.
And with head coach Dabo Swinney. He also had some injuries in his career, so if he can stay healthy too.
Including last year, yeah.
Yeah. If he can stay healthy too, he'll be another good Clemson product. As I said, I already gave Corey. No, Corey, did you give your Jets pick?
No, you just talked about the Jets.
Yeah, that's right. I talked about the Jets. I have him taking Taylor Decker, who you had going to the Colts. Who do you have?
I have Kamale, however you say it, Correa, the outside linebacker out of Boise State.
All right. The Jets, Todd Bowles is a defensive-minded coach. I know I'm saying that a lot this episode, but I'm just stating facts. But they do need an offensive tackle, so that's why I have them taking Decker. The Redskins at 21, I have them taking Sheldon Rankins, who you had going to...
My Saints.
Yeah, you had him going to your Saints, that's right. But Rankins, he's a defensive tackle. They need a linebacker, DN, D tackle. He's obviously not going to be able to play linebacker, but he could play defensive end if he'd lost some weight. I believe he's a little over 300 pounds. But
I, too, go defensive tackle for the Redskins, but I go Andrew Billings because, of course, I have Rankins already off the board. He's the defensive tackle out of Baylor, who would really help that pass rush, the run stop, which was pretty poor for the Redskins last year. That would really help them out trying to get further into playoffs.
Moving on, you got the Houston Texans, who finished at 9-7, as did the Washington Redskins. They both made the playoffs. We are now in playoff teams. The Redskins started that at 21, but 22, the Texans. They just signed Brock Osweiler, quarterback who backed up Peyton Manning in Denver. Lamar Miller, running back from Miami. They need a wide receiver on the other side of DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins was on the other side of Andre Johnson until they released him last offseason. So I say they take a local wide receiver from Baylor and Corey Coleman, who a lot of people think could also be a number 1 receiver in this year's draft.
I am going to go Corey Coleman as well out of Baylor because local product, as you said, out of Baylor. Coach Bill O'Brien was at his pro day, I read. So he's keeping an eye on him. I think they might do that. Same reason as you said to help out DeAndre Hopkins. He really needs help. I think it was last episode or something. We're talking about free agency, about them taking this pick here, about picking up a wideout, and I talked about Coleman then.
Yeah.
About helping him out because DeAndre Hopkins had 96 targets more than anyone else on the team. Like he was 96 more than second best on the team. So yeah, definitely need a wideout. That position help out Brock Osweiler. I think Corey Coleman will be that guy.
Now, if they didn't sign Osweiler, do you think they take a quarterback with this pick? I know they just released Brian Hoyer this past Saturday. That probably wouldn't have happened if they would have signed Osweiler, but then they re-signed Brandon Whedon, who they got off waivers from the Dallas Cowboys, because they played with 4 different quarterbacks last year. Ryan Mallett, Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer was opening day starter. He was a week 1 starter, opening days with baseball. Brian Hoyer, Ryan Mallett, T.J. Yates, who they've had on their roster on and off. He tore his ACL for the second time in his career. So then they'd go sign Brandon Whedon from Dallas. And both Texas teams were with quarterbacks last year. It was just not a good year. So do you think they take a quarterback with this pick if they don't sign Osweiler?
I think they do. They might even try to trade up to get a quarterback, maybe even just to make sure they get one of the top guys. I think they would probably take this pick. Maybe if they don't sign Osweiler, maybe a Christian Hackenberg out of Penn State.
Yeah, I was just about ready to ask you. Do you think they take a Christian Hackenberg with this pick? Hackenberg's my favorite player. I think if they didn't sign Osweiler, I think Hackenberg and Bill O'Brien would be reunited with this number 22 pick, and Hackenberg would be going to Houston. Who knows? They could still take a quarterback in the second round, maybe even the third round, but we'll just have to see. I'd really like to see Hackenberg get reunited with him. I think he has a lot of potential in the NFL. He's about 6'4", 230 pounds. Had a great freshman year with O'Brien at Penn State, but then O'Brien left to go to the Houston Texans. He is an NFL coach. I respect for why he left. His son also has a medical condition. Houston obviously has better hospitals than Central Pennsylvania does. So I'd really like to see Hackenberg go to Houston, but I have Coleman right now with the Texans. The Vikings pick at 23. I haven't taken Josh Doctson, who you had going to the Lions. They also need a wide receiver. Andrew Janocko from Clearfield, Pennsylvania, is a assistant coach up in Minnesota right now. You can see him on TV sometimes sitting next to Norv Turner, the offensive coordinator. We'll get into him next week when we talk about local guys. There's a lot of local guys from Central Pennsylvania that made it big, and we hope we do the same with this podcast. So you can share it, like it, retweet it, whatever you got to do. Get this podcast out there. But I have the Vikings taking Doctson from TCU, the wide receiver.
Similarly, a wide receiver yet again, but I'm going Laquan Treadwell, who I do believe will still be available at this time. The wide receiver out of Ole Miss. I think he's been regarded as one of the top guys, of course, of the wideout class, along with Doxson and Coleman and Fuller, who we haven't talked about yet in terms of being picked. But the Vikings do need a wide receiver to help out Teddy Bridgewater get more people. Stephon Diggs was like his number one guy last year, and that's it. They don't really have much else going for him, so they do definitely need a wide receiver.
Yeah, 2 years ago they took Cordero Patterson late in the first round. And then they traded up again, and they took their quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, from Louisville. So, and as you said, Diggs was really Bridgewater's only target. So, another wide receiver to help that offense would be perfect for the Vikings. 3 in a row now. I have another wide receiver going. I have Treadwell going to the Cincinnati Bengals. They lost Mohamed Sanu and Marvin Jones in free agency to the Detroit Lions and Atlanta Falcons. Cincinnati needs another receiver besides A.J. Green. Maybe A.J. Green gets traded here in the future. I believe his rookie deal is up after this year. So maybe they get their replacement in Green if they think he's going to go sign somewhere else next year in free agency. So I have Treadwell, wide receiver from Ole Miss, going Cincinnati Bengals.
Yet again, another wide receiver, but since I have Treadwell already off the board at this point, I'm going to take probably the next best guy, and that's Will Fuller out of Notre Dame, the wide receiver, to kind of complement A.J. Green there. He's a deep ball threat, very quick, speedy guy. Might be able to take some pressure off of A.J. Green, maybe get him some more one-on-ones, because I know A.J. Green is a must-lock-down guy that needs to be locked down by defenses each time they play against him. So maybe Will Fuller will be able to take some safeties out of the play by going deep, help out big explosive plays for the Cincinnati Bengals and Andy Dalton next season.
Moving on, one of the Bengals' rivals, my Pittsburgh Steelers, who the Steelers beat in the playoffs this past year in the wild card round. I have them taking A'Shawn Robinson, the defensive tackle from Alabama. They've really been missing a big defensive tackle ever since Casey Hampton was there. Robinson, 6'4", 310 pounds. He's a monster in my opinion. So they fill the hole with Ashawn Robinson from Alabama. A lot of Ohio State and Alabama guys go in the first round this year, I think. It's normally Alabama, but now with Urban Meyer, who has the SEC ties up at Ohio State, he's recruiting those type of players, developing them, and they're obviously getting drafted this year, next year, whenever it is. But I have Robinson going to Pittsburgh.
I have the Steelers taking Eli Apple, the cornerback out of Ohio State, who we were just talking about. I think that the Steelers need a boosted secondary to help really get them into deeper playoff contention, maybe in Super Bowl contention, and I think Eli Apple is the guy that can do that.
All right. Now, the team that the Steelers beat in Super Bowl 40, the Seattle Seahawks, who lost to the Carolina Panthers, who lost to the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 50 this year, I have them taking Jason Spriggs, the offensive tackle from Indiana. He's the best available tackle, best available lineman, I think, after Tunsil, Stanley, Conklin, Ryan Kelly. I believe was it Ryan Kelly from Alabama, and then Taylor Decker from Ohio State. So they really need an offensive lineman. Could take a guard, but if Kelly's there, even they could take him. They traded Max Unger to your New Orleans Saints last offseason, so they really need a center too. So if he's there, take him. But I have Spriggs. They're going to take a lineman either way, I think.
I think they're taking a lineman, but a defensive lineman. I'm having taking Emmanuel Ogbah, the defensive end out of Oklahoma State.
All right. Defense wins championships. Seattle Seahawks did do that 2 years ago against the Denver Broncos. And Ogbah is a great player, so who knows if he'll be a next Cliff Averill or if he'll be a next, who's the guy that they drafted at Ohio State? Was it Vernon Golson? I think it was Vernon Golson. And he turned out to be a bust. So, who knows what Ogbah's going to do. I think he's a great player. Talking about busts, a lot of people are saying Robert Nkemdiche is going to be a bust. I haven't gone to Green Bay Packers. They just lost B.J. Raji, who decided to retire young, but said he is willing to come back. So we'll have to find out about that. But I have the Packers taking Nkemdiche, who was the number one overall recruit 3 years ago, and then obviously committed to Ole Miss and getting drafted this year.
I don't think they go Nkemdiche because of the concerns he has, whatever is going on with him. I do think they go defense, and they go Chris Jones, the defensive tackle out of Mississippi State.
Any reason behind that?
Well, he said Raji, he can fill that void left by him, I guess.
All right. Another defensive tackle, Jaron Reed from Alabama. A lot of SEC players as well. There always is. I have Jaron Reed going Kansas City Chiefs. They need a defensive tackle as well. So I think he's the best fit for Kansas City. It all starts up front, as I said earlier, with the lines. So Andy Reid's a ground and pound type of guy, but Jaron Reed plays on the defensive side of the ball anyways. Reed to Kansas City.
I have taken William Jackson III, cornerback out of Houston, boost that secondary.
All right. I have Jackson III going to Carolina at pick number 30. I don't want to skip over 29 here, but I will. I have Jackson III going to Carolina because yesterday the Carolina Panthers just pulled the franchise tag on cornerback Josh Norman, so that's why I have Jackson III going to Carolina. Going back to, actually, we'll go back to 29 here in a little bit because I'll probably end up talking about it for a while, and I don't want to forget 31. 31, I have Connor Cook. the quarterback from Denver. No, the quarterback from Michigan State, excuse me, going to Denver to replace Peyton Manning, to replace to help out with that quarterback situation. They have Mark Sanchez, Trevor Siemian, Brian Hoyer's out there today, I believe, for a visit. So I have Connor Cook going to Denver. So who do you have going 30?
31, yeah.
Did you say Kansas City pick?
Yeah, I did Kansas City. We're doing 30 and 31. Now the Panthers at 30 taking Vernon Butler, the defensive tackle out of Louisiana Tech.
Okay.
And the Broncos taking Robert Kimdiche out of Ole Miss, the defensive lineman.
Okay.
And I'm gonna do 29 here first because I know you want to say your pick because you're really happy about it.
Yes.
But 29 is the Arizona Cardinals, and I haven't taken Ryan Kelly, the center out of Alabama, who you had going to the Colts. So without further ado, here's Luke, who's probably going to ramble on here.
And anyways, Christian Hackenberg, my favorite player. I have him going to the Arizona Cardinals with the 29th pick in the first round of the 2016 NFL Draft. Hackenberg, as I said, he's 6'4", 230 from Penn State. He was born in Eastern Pennsylvania, went to high school at Fork Union Military Academy in Palmyra, Virginia, right outside of Richmond. Came to Penn State when Bill O'Brien was hired after Joe Paterno was fired due to the Jerry Sandusky problems. I really don't want to get into it, but if I have to say it, I will. It hit Penn State hard, but that's all I'll say about it. With all the sanctions and stuff. And it really hurt Penn State in the future when Hackenberg was playing, too, because of the scholarship restrictions. But they're getting all their scholarships back this year, which is good for all you Penn State Nittany Lion fans out there. But as I said, I have the Cardinals taking Hack, trying to talk about Hack and not Penn State. Jordan Palmer, the brother of current Arizona Cardinal quarterback Carson Palmer, is helping train Hackenberg through this draft process. So, could be a reason why they take him. Palmer is also getting old. Former Heisman Trophy winner out of USC after the 2002 season and was drafted number 1 overall to the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2003 draft. Bruce Arians also likes big, tall, strong quarterbacks that are somewhat mobile. Hackenberg's a pocket passer. Everyone saw what he did with Bill O'Brien, the head coach of the Texans, his freshman year. And then he left. James Franklin came in, and he wasn't the same. He's gotten sacked over 100 times the past 2 years, which is probably the biggest major concern that scouts and teams and coaches are, having trouble with Hackenberg. But he has a lot of potential. He was a top 15 recruit coming out of Fork Union Military Academy. And Arizona also needs a quarterback, too. They do have Drew Stanton, who they just re-signed this offseason. You might have saw him go dancing on the sideline against Seattle last year on Sunday Night Football after a big play. And then they traded for Matt Barkley last year over the summer from Philadelphia to bring him back out west. He also went to USC. Palmer went to USC. Who knows what's going to happen? I'd really like to see Hackenberg go to Arizona, but I'd really, really love to see him go to Houston, as I said a little bit ago, to reunite with Bill O'Brien and, possibly win a Super Bowl in the future. And yes, you heard it here first on Across the Goal Line from Luke Goddessart. Christian Hackenberg and Bill O'Brien, if they get reunited, I could see him winning the Super Bowl in the near future. That's all for our mock draft. I'm going to send it back over to Corey. He has our goal line stand questions for this week.
I do have some goal line stand questions, but first, we just went through our whole mock drafts there, and it was a pretty long mock draft, of course, the entire first round. There is no 32nd pick, of course, because the New England Patriots, due to Deflategate the previous year, they lost their first round pick this season, so there is only 31 picks in this first round of the draft. So, and this is time for our question of the week. Our question of the week goes out to you. You heard us. Now it's time for you. Who do you think is going to go number one in the 2016 NFL draft? We both have Jared Goff. You guys get in on the action. Tell us who you think is going to go number one. Do you think it's going to be Goff? Maybe it's going to be Wentz. Maybe it's someone else that we haven't even thought of yet.
Maybe it's somebody who has a third round grade on their board, and they just blow everybody's mind and take that player. But I think everybody thinks that it's going to be a quarterback, whether it's going to be Goff or Wentz. We'll just have to find out and see next Thursday night. I know the draft starts at 8 o'clock. You can watch it on ESPN or NFL Network. A little shout out to them. As you said, that was our mock draft. Let us know what you think. Tweet at us. Tweet at me. I'll throw my Twitter handle out there again in case you guys forgot. It's CoolHandLuke96. You can tweet at us. And use the hashtag ATGL16. ATGL16. Please use that hashtag. Get it trending worldwide. And, maybe, as Corey said in previous weeks, maybe your stuff will be featured right here on Across the Goal Line.
Yes, it just might. Especially if you ask us your own questions for Goal Line Stand, which we're about to get into. You can answer that question we just asked you on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, also on this YouTube video right here in the comments section down below.
Which you need to subscribe to as well.
More on that, too, later at the very end of the show. So Goal Line Stand now, of course. This is our rapid fire, little quick round, more current things. So we're going to start with some football since we just got done, I guess. So you did talk about this. Josh Norman is now a free agent. The franchise tag is pulled off of him by the Carolina Panthers. Now he's a free agent. So who do you think will pick up Josh Norman?
Well, I think whoever he does sign with, I think a deal is going to be struck before the draft starts next week, just so teams know where he went. They can, realign their draft board. And, if they're planning on taking a corner in the first round, maybe they don't have to take that guy now if they just sign Norman. But he's asking too much money. The franchise tag that he was placed under was for $14.5 million, and he wants $16 million a year, which is just ridiculous. I don't think he deserves it. His stats really haven't lived up to it either, so he'll go to somewhere where he'll play, obviously, right away, and who knows, he could even go back to Carolina, but I don't think that's going to happen. I heard that he fired his agent after the Panthers did this to him. I also heard that he's from out west, so maybe, a California team, like the San Francisco 49ers or the Seattle Seahawks possibly too. They're always looking for a new member of the Legion of Doom.
Boom.
Legion of Boom. My bad.
Going back to your Laurinaitis story there, were you?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to switch gears here to basketball, NBA specifically. Kawhi Leonard won his second straight Defensive Player of the Year award, I think yesterday or the day before that, beating out some other guys like Draymond Green. People are thinking that Draymond Green maybe should have won that award. Do you think Kawhi Leonard is the right choice for this award?
I really didn't watch a whole lot of basketball this year. I've been watching a lot of it, since the playoffs have started. The same thing with hockey. But so I really don't have an answer for that. I mean, congratulations to him on winning that award. But I guess I was reading, and I guess people were saying that he actually smiled for once in the picture that they took with him holding the trophy. So that's all I'll say about it, because I really don't have anything to say about it, because like I said, I really didn't watch basketball this year.
All I'll say is you couldn't really go wrong with Kawhi. I mean, he has been one of the best defensive players in the entire league for how long? For going on a couple years now. So, and he's being rewarded for it. So, good on him. And finally, going back to our mock draft now, just to kind of wrap this all together, we talked about it earlier, way earlier now, because we're really far ahead by now. So, the number 2 pick, of course, got traded. The Browns traded their second pick to the Eagles for their 8th pick. Does this number 2 pick mean that the Browns are confident in Robert Griffin III?
It has to. I mean, I don't think they would have done it if they, weren't. RG3 was the second overall pick in 2012. He did win Rookie of the Year his first year. And then after that, he got hurt, got benched, got
attacked, something like that?
Yeah, he got attacked by the media. Attack's a good word. He got attacked by the media down in Washington. I mean, don't the media down in Washington, D.C. have anything else to talk about? Hell, the President of the United States lives there. So I think it might have hurt him a little bit, and, with the coaching decision to, start Kirk Cousins, but Kirk Cousins was the better player anyways, so I think yes, to answer your question, the Browns do believe in RG3, so that's why they traded back.
Okay. Adding on to that, of course, Hugh Jackson, new coach. He's kind of a QB guy. He helped out Andy Dalton a lot last year, I know. So maybe he helps out Robert. And, of course, trading that second pick, I do believe, like you said, they think that they're confident in Robert Griffin getting back to that 2012 level.
Yeah, Robert Griffin, the 25th, I should say, not the 3rd, because I think I said this last week, he's the 25th quarterback since the Browns moved back to Cleveland back in 1999. So that's my little nickname for him.
All right, guys, so we're going to wrap it up here today. Make sure you like us on all social media. Like us on Facebook, just regular old Across the Goal Line. You can search it up on Facebook when you log on there. Follow us on Twitter at ATGL16. That's ATGL16 on Twitter. Follow us there. You can also tweet at us about any question, like the question of the week we just gave you, who you think is going to be number 1 pick in the NFL draft. If you're answering that question on Twitter, comment or answer that question with the hashtag ATGL16. Once again, ATGL16 is the hashtag you're going to use. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already, because you will be instantly alerted whenever we upload a video as a subscriber to our channel. So you'll be able to listen to the podcast almost immediately after we upload it. So that will help you out. Also, concerning about YouTube, some people have been telling us that this podcast has been a little too long. So to compensate for that, we've added little timestamps in the description we have a topic list and then the timestamps that are in coordination with when the topics start in the video, so that you can skip through any topics that you don't want to listen to. Like maybe you don't like WWE, pro wrestling, whatever. You can skip past something if we're doing like a predictions. Like next week, we're doing Payback for WWE. So if you don't want to listen to that next week, you can just click through that and move on to the next topic using the timestamps. So,
or if you don't want to listen to our mock draft this week, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because it's one of the best mock drafts out there. You can skip over that, but then this episode wouldn't really be much.
Finally, you can email us at acrossthegoalline2016@gmail.com, acrossthegoalline2016@gmail.com. Any questions or concerns, like the length of the podcast here, you can do that. Also, if you're answering any questions, you can do that on Facebook and Twitter. Also, the comment section of this YouTube video, even to the email account if you want. I don't know why you would, but if you want to, email it to us personally, you can. If you want to have any questions that you might want to hear featured on here on Across the Goal Line, on Goal Line Stand, you can do that too on all 3 of those platforms, or the 4th one, the email too. And we just might feature you on a future edition of Across the Goal Line.
Please share this. Please share this podcast. Friends, family, pets, whatever, however you got to share it. Retweet it on Twitter, share it on Facebook. Word of mouth is the old-fashioned way. You can do that as well. We'd be very, very happy if you did that.
Yeah, we like doing this podcast, and we hope we can keep doing it. And we need support if we're going to keep doing this. So please share this podcast with almost anyone you know, so we can help us keep us going here. So thanks for listening to this edition of Across the Goal Line, and we will see you again on the next episode of Across the Goal Line right here from the